Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. And so I'm here with another little crafty chat while I swatch some paints. So in this video I will be swatching the Arteza Premium Gouache. Now I just want to say before I begin, I was sent these paints from Arteza a while ago, and I believe I did an unboxing, but I never actually used them, which is bad on my part because I was sent these to use them and try them out. And so I am swatching them. I pulled them all out, and since I'm in like this mood where I want to swatch everything, I'm just like, oh, I have the gouache from Arteza that I would like to swatch. So the set that I have, I will link in the description box down below, but I believe it's the 24 color set premium gouache, and they all come in these little tubes. And yeah, you get a really good assortment of colors in this set. I also want to disclaimer that I've never used gouache before. Actually, I thought I never used gouache before, but apparently I have some gouache paints in my watercolor stash that I must have used when I was in school and did like the studio practice but on watercolors. So go figure that. But from like my recent recollection, I don't remember ever trying out gouache. But basically, from my understanding of what gouache is, it's just an opaque watercolor of sorts. And so you can use it like a watercolor, or you can apply it thicker so that it's a bit more opaque and not as translucent as watercolor. But everything is water soluble, so there's that. So yeah, I am just swatching them out here in my little swatch book, and I've been swatching a lot lately, only because I don't know what to do with myself. I have a lot of ideas for things that I want to do, but I'm that type of person who becomes really overwhelmed with all the ideas, and then I never actually do any of them. And so to get sort of my creative juices kind of flowing, I like to do things like sort my supplies and apparently swatch. And so I have a lot of stuff that I needed to swatch, so here I am again. And I've gotten a few comments about swatch, like keeping swatches or keeping a swatch book, and like if it's helpful or not. And for me, I do it because the process, I guess, I don't want to say calms me down, but I do feel overwhelmed with so many ideas sometimes that just to sit down and just kind of swatch colors onto a page does kind of calm me down a little bit. And so that's just how it works for me. A more practical side of like why you should swatch is just to see all the colors that you have, like to take stock of what you have, and it's just a good reference, especially if you end up liking a specific color. You know exactly what it is and where to get it. I also like seeing all the different color, like all the different sets that I have that have colors in common. So a lot of the watercolor sets that I have colors that sort of are the same from a different watercolor set, and so I like seeing which ones are unique to the set and everything like that. This swatch book actually has helped me tremendously in setting up a watercolor palette, and hopefully in one of my next videos I will show you how I went about setting up that palette. But yeah, when you have all your different colors down on like in a little book, you can go through it and see which ones are the same and which ones are different, and you know, it's good to compare colors, to make palettes and stuff like that. And so I think it's very helpful. I was a type of person who didn't care less about swatches, but as I've gotten older, I've realized that it actually is helpful, and I really enjoy the process of creating the swatches. And so I tried my best to put these colors in color order, and I'm swatching them down here. There are some colors that are pretty generic, and then there are some that are like interesting, like the that pink one. I think it's like peach red or something. I think that's what it's called. It's the first one that I swatched, and it's like this fluorescent pink. That's very pretty, and it's the color that kind of stands out the most in this set. It just seems a little out of place, but all the other colors seem pretty standard for sort of like a, I don't want to say a beginner set, but like, you know, like a set collection of colors. So yeah, like I said before, I know absolutely nothing about gouache, so this might not be very informative, but I really appreciate these Arteza tubes. or this particular set from Arteza. And that is because you'll see towards the end of the swatches, I actually go in back with my pencil and jot down all of these, statistics of the colors. And so each tube actually has the name of the color written on it. It also has a box that is either filled in or not filled in, and that tells you the translucency or the opaqueness of the color, like when you actually use it on paper. So a lot of these colors are definitely opaque. There are some that are translucent, and then there's some that are semi opaque colors, and the actual tube says that. And then on either side of that box, on the left hand side, is a bunch of plus signs, and those record the light fastness. So I believe most of these colors have like 3 plus signs, so the light fastness is really good. The peach red, the really fluorescently red color, has 2 plus signs, so the light fastness of that is not as good. So that's really cool that these tubes have that on them. And then on the right hand side of the opaque square thing, you have the pigment number. So if you're interested in knowing all of that about these colors, it's right on the tube, and I actually noticed that towards the end when I was swatching out the whites, and so I ended up going back in and recording all of that information on the swatches. I think that's helpful, especially if you are creating art to sell. It's super helpful to have the light fast information, and if you want to know the pigment that they used in making the color, that's also useful. I know a lot of sort of, I guess, budget supplies. Most of them are usually student grade. A lot of them don't have that information readily available, so it's really cool that Arteza does that. I also have their watercolor pencils, and that information is also on the watercolor pencils, so I think that's really cool that they've been doing that. But yeah, so that is my swatch, my quick little swatch of these gouache paints. I'm really excited to use them. I'm hoping that I can use some of these colors in a watercolor palette. I was actually a bit concerned that when I put them in half pans, they'll dry and not be able to reactivate again, but as I'm recording this voiceover now, I can confirm that when you put the gouache in a half pan and you let it dry fully, you can definitely wet it and reactivate the paint and use it as watercolor. And so that is probably what I am going to do when I set up my watercolor palette. I will say it this much: if you do that, expect the gouache to not dry perfectly pristine. It'll dry with a bunch of cracks, but for me, that's not an issue. If I'm going to use it as watercolor, I don't mind. It just doesn't look as pretty as if you go and buy half pans already filled with paint. But yeah, so that is this swatch. I really hope it was informative in a very limited way. But yeah, I am just swatching colors, and I think it's been very therapeutic, and considering the time that we're living in, we all need some sort of calming ritual or thing to do, and swatching my colors and creating my palette has been that for me. And so I will definitely come back and show you how I've put together my palette. It's going to be a watercolor palette with a few of the gouache colors. I think maybe like a handful of them, like 5 or 6 colors from this gouache set. I'm going to put in half pans and kind of create a pretty basic rainbow watercolor palette with the colors that I have on hand, just to test it out, because I've never had like a dedicated palette before, and I'm really curious to see how that'll work for me. And I'm pretty sure the more I use it, the more I'm going to figure out which colors I like and which colors I don't like. But yeah, I really hope you are all very well, and yeah, stay safe, friends. I'll see you next time. Bye.